what's been on my mind this week is how really there's one of two areas or one or two ways you can take kind of the approach of delivering content. You either take the approach of like, I'm going to deliver content that has massive value and I'm going to kind of go mainstream with my content, or you go the contrarian view, right? And to me, I struggle to like play on either side, like contrarian view versus like this very direct view, but I feel like there's room for both. And so what I want to be is a realist, right? When I look at content, I am typically looking at, do they actually believe this? Or is this something they're just taking the opposite point so that they can get views? And I'm kind of over this approach of all content being delivered to try to generate more views. Like, what if we just like lived in truth and we delivered content based on what we believe or the need of the person? So like as a setup for that, like I've been thinking a lot about this concept that floats in our world, and you'll understand it. You've heard it before, and that is like you're the sum of the 5 people that you put your time in, or that spend time with you. Well, that's very true, and I tell my kids that all the time in regards to their friends or the people I want them to not have influence in their life. I think it needs to be reversed, and so on this one, I want to go contrarian, like because I think that that's like a great thought. But I think if we are living in truth, we should be introspective with the influence and impact we have on other people's lives versus the impact they have on our lives. I think it's the wrong perspective. So from a contrarian point of view, I think the way we need to look at it is, what are the 5 people we actually spend the most time with, and are they better because of it? A couple of weeks ago, I was really thinking through that concept and the 5 people that I spend the most time with, and typically you've got a family member in there. It's a spouse, it's a child, it's a mom, it's a dad. You've got people that you work closely with work. You have typically people in your social circle, maybe it's a friend. And they're really, if you get down to like the 5 people you spend the most time with, instead of looking at how they impact your life, I think it should be reversed. And we should be looking at it for how do we impact their life and what impact have I had? And I listed the 5 people out and I asked myself this question: is their life better? Are they a better person because I'm in their life? Because instead of looking at life through the lens of getting, we should be looking at it through the lens of giving. And if we are going to make impact on people's lives, we need to stop thinking about what we get from relationships, and we need to change the perspective into what we give to relationships. I've always heard, again, one more contrarian point. Relationships are 50-50. I think that's a misnomer. I think relationships, if they're real, are 100-100. You can't just give with an expectation of getting the exact. I think true relationships are, I'm all in no matter what I get in return. And I think that I was really convicted because there are people in my life that I spend a lot of time with that have an expectation that they're giving, and it's maybe because I pay them a paycheck, or they have a job within the realm of the scope of their responsibility. But I think that we need to kind of set all that aside and say, what am I doing to make that life better? What is my responsibility in the growth of that person? And I think if we looked at it from a different perspective, I think it would change the nature of our relationships. So in that line of thinking, linear thinking, if my responsibility to those 5 people is to make them better, maybe not just like make the life circumstances better, but actually make them a better human being. My influence, my impact should be causing growth, should be causing opportunity. Then I need to start looking at how I treat my relationships. And what I realized is there are some relationships I've done very poorly and some relationships I've done well. And I'll tell you that the great equalizer to every relationship, whether I've done it poorly or I've done it well, is love. If we will choose to instill love in our relationships, and not in an inappropriate way, but in a very appropriate way, like love, like the desire to sacrifice on behalf of another, the desire to put someone else in first place over our own lives. Love, like true, like selfless love. It is the great equalizer. And so like, as I went back over the 5, I started looking at like the negative effects that maybe I've had on somebody. Maybe I was too harsh on them. Maybe I was too harsh on my son, or I had a high expectation, and maybe I wasn't making him better. Maybe I needed to add elements to make him better. What I realized is that the only thing that actually makes up for the negative effects I've had on people is love, but it's the great equalizer, because the moment that I choose to instill love in any relationship, it actually equalizes all the negative and all the things that I've done unintentionally. And for me, I started thinking through and dissecting down my relationships of like, am I actually making that person better? What could I do to make them better? And what areas could I improve that would equalize or improve the gap from where I've been to where I want to go? And what I realize is that love is that. And so what is love, right? Like love, I think, is the hardest thing to describe. I believe is a verb, right? So love has action. Love has intent. Love isn't something that I think about. Love is something that I do. And so if I'm going to equalize, it can't just be having a feeling or an emotion towards that person. It has to be done with intention, with purpose, but also there has to be a physical nature to it. And physical isn't just touch, right? Like physical oftentimes is communication. And so then as I communicate and I'm creating this equalizer, and all the poor relationships maybe I've had, or maybe I haven't seen the growth that I want in the people that I'm having influence on, communication has to become the focal point of the distribution of the love that I feel and I want to instill in that person to cause them to take the steps towards the growth and the impact I want in their life. And so in that same line of thinking, what I've always known, and I've actually spoken it a lot, but I don't know that I've practiced it, is that whenever there's a lack of communication, negativity always fills the void. I've said that phrase 100 times in my lifetime. And it's so true. Where there is a lack of communication, negativity always fills the void. When we're not open with our love for our spouse or our children, or we don't pay a compliment to a coworker who's going above and beyond, the moment that there's a lack, all of a sudden, negativity is the natural human experience of being, like we place that because in the end, we so desire that reinforcement, that love, that reciprocation. And so when it doesn't happen, we naturally just fill it in with negativity. And then it comes into that self-doubt. Well, they don't appreciate what I do. They don't actually love me. They don't see me. They don't appreciate me. And so then what happens is in the lack of communication, as the distribution of love, right? Like the verb, then what happens is we actually have the negative effect. So I went back to that original 5 and I started looking at my communication towards them. And in order to instill love into the gaps that I've created so that negativity doesn't fill it, I began to start using these 2 phrases. And these 2 phrases have literally changed my relationships with the people around me. Now, being open and honest, I really am not great at relationships. I have to work at it. It doesn't come natural to me. I don't naturally feel emotion in an overwhelming fashion. I don't always sense emotion in other people. I'm very linear. I'm very logic-based, and everything is a data exchange. So when I text people, it's usually just information back and forth. I never use emojis. I don't use exclamation points. I just text. It's information exchange. And what I realized is in my communication and that information exchange, I was actually leaving the voids that negativity was filling. Does Eddie really love me? Does Eddie really appreciate me? Does Eddie really value what I do? Is Eddie really happy with what I'm doing? All those things are filling those voids. And 2 phrases that has changed those relationships, even though I really struggle with relationships, are this. Number 1, I'm proud of you. It's the void that I think I felt my entire life that always told me I need to drive harder. I had great parents. I had amazing parents. But one thing that my dad would even admit today is he would admit that he struggled to say, I love you or I'm proud of you. And for me, I struggle not to pass that on in my own life because oftentimes when we have a void in our own life, we struggle to give it to someone else. And so I struggle to feel like I'm ever validated by my work. So I'm always just working and working and working and working for validation. And when somebody says they're proud of me, it doesn't matter if it's a peer or someone, like in the kind of system beneath me. If they say they're proud of me, like it sends emotion into my body like no other phrase. And what I realized is the thing that I need the most, or that I perceive that I need the most, that I'm willing to give, that I've lacked giving, actually sends the exact same energy and love that I feel when someone says it to me to other people. And I began to use that phrase a lot lately and just expressing it. And it's amazing how it has changed my relationships literally in the last couple of weeks. I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of what you've done. I've said that more to my kids in the last few weeks than I probably ever said it in their lifetime. So many times you see them, like you just see their eyes, like their faces, like it's just like, it's an immediate transfer of emotion that then all of a sudden I feel the emotion, and it's super, super powerful. The second phrase I've been using is, I'm really glad you're here. Most people just want their presence acknowledged. Most people in the world feel unseen, unheard, unvalidated. Using the phrase, I'm so glad you're here, or maybe an extension of that, I'm so glad you're part of the team, especially in the work setting, is such an appropriate phrase that doesn't allow the dip to happen and the negativity to fill in. And so even though if you struggle, and I struggle to give people the compliments that they so deserve, just using the phrase, I'm so glad you're here, has really changed the dynamic of the relationships around me. Something I'm practicing a lot is just, I'm proud of you. I'm really glad you're here, which has really changed the dynamic of my relationships. I was asked one of the strangest questions I've ever been asked on a podcast the other day. And it was, if you could be any superhero, you could have your own superhero name and a superpower, what would it be? And I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. It was like a weird one, because I really don't dwell in the realms of the superheroes and supernatural. It dawned on me, what I want more than anything in this life is impact. And I started thinking through, like, what would if I could direct that impact at one thing, what would it be? And I started thinking through, like, the orphans that we serve, or the homeless, or the people that we've literally freed from slavery. What I want for every person that is under my employment, my children, orphans, everybody that surrounds me, is for them to see that their life has more potential than what they currently believe, and to strive to reach it at a level that they never thought possible. If I could actually have a superpower, it would be to unlock people's beliefs about not just like their ability, but their responsibility. I see life as a responsibility. I see life as, I'm a created being. I believe I'm a created being, created for something, for a purpose. And until I live in that place, I never strive for what's possible. And I want people that come in contact with me to feel it, to feel like I need to explore what I'm created for and start taking steps. And I want them to feel like I believe in them and I would do anything to get them there. Because I really feel that way. Like that's what I really want. Like if I had a superpower, it would be that. Like could I unlock everybody's potential around me, not like just their gifts, but like what they were created to do. Like you just think about like how powerful it would be if you had a group of people that were so sold out to this idea, I was created for more, and I'm not going to rest until I hit my potential. Like, has there ever been a human being on the planet that's lived their entire life with this belief and this abandonment to, I'm created for something and there's nothing that's going to stand in my way to get me there? No obstacle, no problem, no circumstance, no situation, no person. I'm going for that with reckless abandon. And I just don't think we see many people in the world like that. I want to live that way, but more than that, I want to live in a way that causes other people to live like that. To me, it's the ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect. It's like if you could live that way and you could instill that in others, like I think they could begin to find joy, fulfillment, but not only that, impact themselves. sometimes quieting our own insecurities, our own disbeliefs about ourselves, quieting down that inner monologue that tells us we're not good enough, that tells us we're never going to achieve what we desire to achieve, is something that I think every great person has a relationship with. I think back of like all the great human beings in history. You know, I wrote the book Titan Leadership, and I love history. I love those people in history because I think we learn so much from them. But I think that one thing that a lot of them had in common was they dealt with their self-doubt to the degree that it allowed them to step out, whether it was in faith or just sheer determination, and still take action, even though those noises were we all have it. You know, like I don't think there's a human on the planet that doesn't have some self-doubt. If they don't have self-doubt, I think that would say even more negative things about them, you know? Because we're human, right? Like there are frailties about us. There are things that are not perfect. So because of that, it's like I want to have a relationship with it, but I can't let it control me. I can't let the self-doubt control me. And the only way to not let it control me is to speak to it. And I think an easy way to speak to it is to say the exact same things I was saying to, to people around me, how much I'm proud of them or how much I'm glad they're here. And then speaking that to yourself. You know, I am in a place in life where I actually never dreamed of being here. Like my dreams stopped years short of where I am. I'm living beyond the dreams that I ever had for myself, which is kind of ironic. Like, because most people think that the only way to get to the end goal is to actually dream so big that you finally get there. I still have some bucket list items, but for the most part, I'm living in the next right step in the moment that's going to carry me to in my belief, my full potential. And so this kind of concept of content but never satisfied, like I'm so content with where I am. I'm in love with massive gratitude for what I have today, but not satisfied with staying the same, but wherever I arrive at tomorrow in massive pursuit, I'm also going to find, it's like the stepping stone. It's like always trailing. It's like, I'm going to push and I'm going to be content. And I'm going to push and I'm going to be content. And if this is my plateau, I'm going to be content in that plateau while always pushing to see if I can reach my potential. But I think that having a relationship with my own thoughts, my own self-doubts, I think is one of the keys and one of the variables of success. Because first of all, I never dreamed I would be here. But in that, sometimes I also believe I'm not worthy of being here, right? Because I never dreamed about it. I never dreamed of the exits, or I never dreamed of the nonprofits, or I never dreamed of all the employees or the buildings or whatever it is. Like I never dreamed of that. And so in that same thought, oftentimes I feel unworthy. So having that conversation with myself oftentimes of worthiness, like I am worthy. Like I did work hard to get here. I didn't create shortcuts to get here. I put in the time. I put in, and it's reinforcement consistently so that I don't live in that place of unworthiness. There are moments where I feel it, but I never want to walk in it, live in it, act on it. And I think that's really, really important.
Kind of following that train of thought, I've worked a lot on my inner monologue, and I've had to conjure an avatar, meaning I thought in my life, who do I view in my life as like the most pure, deserving of love? And it's like one of my younger brothers.
Yeah.
Almost in their 8-year-old self. I can see him right in my mind's eye. And if he came to me with something he messed up, how would I talk to him in that moment?
Yeah.
And I've tried to then take that, and that's how I speak to myself.
So good.
And so just thinking about that, where it's like, you are one of the people you're spending the most time with. So are you impacting yourself to be the best to reach your potential?
It's really good. I think, along those lines, I have an avatar for myself too, because who you see in the morning as you're getting ready is usually the worst version of yourself, right? Like you see yourself as the worst version of yourself. You don't oftentimes think of yourself as the best version of yourself. And so my avatar that I think of myself, like when I'm talking to Eddie, I'm not talking to Eddie as a 44-year-old business owner. A practice that I was given was to think of yourself in the purest state. Just like you're talking about your brother, think of yourself in the purest state. And I think for me, the purest state I was in was I was 14 years old. I'd kind of reconciled a lot of the losses of my sister and I'd gotten past it to the point where it became a catalyst for me. It was no longer like Eddie's the one who, he's the one that lost his sister. It was like, it was Eddie who was, and it was like a very positive but very pure state, who also was carefree, who didn't have the cares of the world on his shoulders. He wasn't trying to climb Mount Everest. He wasn't trying to build businesses. He wasn't trying to do all these things. He was just this pure being that was kind of existing without intent. And he was happy, and he had friends, and lots of stuff happened to that 14-year-old guy as he grew up, lots of negative things, lots of positive things that then affected him and changed him. And it is who I am today. But when I speak to myself and I see in my mind's eye this 14-year-old Eddie who was very pure, who didn't have an agenda, who wasn't out to conquer the world, who really just was a pure, like I was a pure representation of just like everything that had happened in my life. Like I wasn't holding it inside. I really loved people at that point. I was very giving. I was happy. That's the person I talked to. And so like when that self-doubt comes and I start talking to myself, or I even want to start talking negatively to myself, like, I can't believe you did that. Why did you make that choice? Like, why did you? I start talking to myself as that 14-year-old. Like I start looking at him in my mind. And for some reason it changes the whole thing, because that's who I really am. Everything else is all the baggage and junk that's been added on in life through experiences and trauma and problems and successes and ego and everything else. But that's not who I am. That's who I am. Like at my core, that's who I am. And so I do my best to talk to that Eddie. Had a young guy come in the office the other day and who have massive hopes and dreams for. And I feel like I've really instilled a lot in this young man's life with intent. I even have conversations with his dad, who lives in a different state, about that young man, about what I see in him, what I want for him. And he came in the other day and he said, "Hey, I've decided to leave your company and I'm going to go chase something else." And in that moment, it was like I quieted everything down, because everything inside of me wanted to go, hold on, are you making the right choice? Or what about the investment I made in you? What about everything that I've put inside of you? What about my investment in you? And I started thinking through, it goes back to the impact. And I started thinking through, like, what do I want for this young man's life? It's not what does Eddie want? What does Eddie get? It's, is this young man better because Eddie's in his life? And it allowed me a moment to step back and go, okay, what are you trying to accomplish with this move? Well, I want to pursue this. And I said, what are you trying to pursue? He said, well, I think this is my greatest opportunity to earn at a level that nothing else I'm currently doing can. And I said, for what purpose? And he said, because I want to give it all away. He's like, I want to still do impact others with you. He said, I want to be able to contribute at a level that I can't contribute today. And I think this is my path. And he said, I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And for me, I realized, like, I did make impact. That's the impact I want, right? Like, I want him living out his full potential and purpose. Like, it would have been easier for me to go, hold on a second, you got a job and a responsibility, and I've invested in you, and I've put time in you, I've taken a chance on you. But the reality of it is like, I'm getting out of him exactly what I said I wanted, which was impact, and I want him to live out his full potential. It allowed me a moment of like clarity to just like step back and go, no, this is good for him. This is a path that he should take. And I told him that. And I said, I think this is a good option for you. I think this is a good opportunity. If I can support you, whatever. And I got a text back from his dad after he had talked to me, and just, saying very, very kind things. And, it's like that's what I want. Those are the interactions I want with people in my life. Is I want to make sure that I'm unlocking it. Like I don't want to ever be the ceiling, the self-imposed ceiling or the forced ceiling, because to me, like, what greater joy or fulfillment in your life than helping others get to their full potential is there? Like, I can't think of any. It was funny. I have an executive assistant and a guy that has worked for me for a long time. We were all sitting around and he goes, the person that Eddie fires the most. And she was like, who? And he's like, executive assistant. So he's like messing with her. And the reality of it is that is the position that has left me the most. However, like as I go back, like he was actually explaining to her, the bar is really high because this assistant went out and built this company, and this assistant went out and built a real estate empire, and this assistant went out and started her own investment firm. He's like, it is the most revolving position around Eddie because Eddie has an expectation. And to me, I thought that was such a huge compliment. Like I walked away from that conversation thinking that's what I want. Like I want the people in closest proximity to me to not feel beholden or restricted by me, but unlocked, like just set on fire, ready to go.
Earlier, you were talking about your approach, your solution is love. Mm-hmm. Something I've thought about a lot is like why you follow someone, why you serve someone. And I've broken it up into 4 categories, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure.
So the 4 categories for me, lowest is fear.
Yeah.
Then reward. I'll do it if I get something. Then out of duty, it's like I must. And then the top one is love.
Yeah.
It's like the selfless, 100% give.
Right.
And expect nothing. Does you feel like that fits in this universe?
I think it does. There are 3 levels of leadership. The first level is I follow because it's a must, right? I don't have a choice. I'm beneath this person. They're my boss. They're my father. They're my mother. They're my whatever it is. Like it's a must. And that to me is obligation, right? It's not love, it's obligation. The second level of leadership is what I would call a general leadership category. They lead people out of convenience. There are a lot of people in this world that don't want the responsibility of leadership. They don't want to rise to the next level because it's inconvenient. So they need someone to lead them. So they're okay with somebody being above them, making their decisions for them. But so you've got, to me, obligation, then you have convenience. The last one is what I call a leader of leaders. And that is, I think, a love-based reaction to someone seeing your potential and guiding you that direction. To me, a good leader will take you from point A to point B. A great leader will take you from point A to point B, and you'll be better because of taking the journey with them. To me, that's the 3 levels of leadership. It's obligation, I don't have a choice. It's my duty, right? Second is convenience. I don't have another path. And the third is love. Like I think it's the pursuit of something. There's 2 great emotions in the human, right? Fear or love. And it's said that we only feel 2 emotions. Everything in life, every action can be boiled down to 2 things. I'm either running or resisting from something, or I'm pursuing or actively going after something. Love, fear. You look at the book of Galatians, and it actually presents you're either avoiding or you're doing something out of obligation or duty, or you're passionately pursuing based on love, desire, passion, which I think is all a love-based emotion. And I think that very emotionally intelligent people get to the root of what drives them, and they live inside of love-based activity. There's so much of our life that is avoidance. I don't like this pain. I don't like this feeling. I don't like this. Even good things can come out of that, right? Like you can go conquer things and find success out of fear. You can find success out of the negative. I'm looking in a mirror and I look overweight, and I don't want people to think bad about me. I don't want them to think I'm fat. And that can cause you to go, or you could look in the mirror and go, you know what, I'm overweight, but I really want to become the best version of myself. I really want to have more energy to spend more time with my kids. I really want to, and then cause the same exact result. I just think the results and the emotions and payoff at the end are radically different. You can get to the same end result. I just think the payment and the fulfillment of that end result is night and day different. I've been on this quest of trying to live in love-based actions. I think that's what emotionally intelligent people do. It's what emotionally intelligent leaders do. And it's this concept of people will follow you because they fear you, but they will die for you if they love you. And if you're a leader, you need to stop looking forward for a minute. You need to look back, look at all those people that are in line, that are lined up to go with you. And you'd ask your question, do they do this out of obligation or fear? Are they just scared that if they don't, they won't get a paycheck? If they don't, I might say something negative to them. If they don't, or do they see the vision and the future and the passion and the love that you have, and they're all in and like, whatever you're doing, I'm in, I'll go with you? Because that will be a good indicator for a leader as to all those people that are standing downstream from you that maybe have a choice, don't have a choice, if you're leading them out of love or you're leading them out of fear. If you lead out of fear, you're only ever going to get the bottom two. You get people that don't have a choice and that are conveniently following. You'll never get to the place where you actually get the highest level of leaders. And for me, to have an organization like we have that's growing into the billions, I can't build it on people that just follow out of obligation or follow out of convenience. I got to have people that are also leaders themselves, that are willing to lead the way I lead, but also are willing to follow because they're so passionate about what we're pursuing.
My mind goes to, what are you doing to make sure you're around the right 5 people? Mm-hmm. I guess that is kind of looking at it like, how are they affecting me? Yeah. I'm kind of going backwards.
Again, I think it's this weird, I think most people are so conditioned to putting themselves in the right room and being around the right people and making sure, and all of that's great. And I am where I am today because I have had great mentors and I have been around amazing people and I have been in the right room. And it's important to get in the right room. But I think sometimes the pursuit of that actually reduces the amount of impact you're going to have on others. Maybe it's 2 sets of 5 people. Maybe we have to intentionally put ourselves around 5 people that are going to impact us and 5 people that we're going to impact. I can say that in the place in life I'm in right now, I want to be very careful with the 5 people because they do to some degree rub off on you. You will have some residual effect by the people that you put in your life. So I don't want to put negative people in there. I don't want to put people in there that are greedy. I don't want to put people in there that are selfish. I want selfless people in that 5. But I also want to make sure that I'm not architecting my world to only have perfect people with perfect alignment around me. The world's messy and people have issues and problems. And in the end, I can't isolate myself from people with problems if I really want to make impact. It'd be very easy to just go, oh, that's an issue I don't want to deal with. But the reality of it is somebody has to step into those issues and deal with it, or it becomes an elitist society where it's just like we're all just separating from each other. Like, that's not what we're called to do. Like, we're actually called to go in, make a difference, show people a different pathway, allow them to see the benefits you've had in your life, the growth that you've had, and be expressive about it and be bold. And in order to do that, you have to surround yourself with 5 people or people that are, to some degree in a path that they can grow towards you, and be receptive and willing. Yeah, one thing that I wrote down is that, like, which goes back to the leadership thing, is that good coaches know their X and O's, they know the plays. Great coaches know and love their players. Business leaders know KPIs and structures. Good leaders and great leaders know their people, Good teachers know their lessons. Great teachers know and love their students. Good salespeople know the sales and the product, and great salespeople know and love their clients. I think there's just a common thought, a common bond, and it goes back to, are we communicating through love? Do we actually care and respect and know the people that we're called to serve? And are we willing to instill and look at our lives for the impact we're making on others versus all of the impact we hope somebody will make on us? Thanks so much for being a part of the podcast and for listening today. I'd love to connect with you further, and you can connect with me on social media at Eddie Wilson Official on any of the social media channels.